Before the BATF attack of February 28th, 1993, there was a couple years that I was with the group. I started off in California. I met David Koresh and Steve Schneider at a guitar center on Sunset Boulevard. The big guitars, they call it the rock and roll. Anything on Sunset Boulevard is the rock and roll. So it's the rock and roll guitar center, the rock and roll Denny's, the places where people would go. And I went in there one day. I was late for a band rehearsal, and my singer had broken my drumsticks, and I only had one pair, and I was really mad at him. So I made them stop, and I went up into the electronic drum room, and I saw two guys there. I bought my sticks, and I went into the electronic drum room, which I wasn't supposed to. I was running out of time, but I had to see this new D drum that had come out. So anyway, I walk in there, and there's these two guys standing there. One had like a suit on, and the other had jeans, ripped jeans, and a T-shirt. And the guy with the suit on said, "Are you a drummer?" And I had drumsticks in my hand. He goes, "You want to play for us? We'd like to hear this kit. We're thinking of buying it." So I sat down, and I played for a couple minutes, and they seemed very impressed. And they said, "Look, my name's Steve Schneider. This is David Koresh. He's a guitarist. We're looking for a drummer. Would you be interested in playing with us?" I was instantly impressed because not many guitarists that I knew had their own manager that hung out with them and was just kind of looking at music equipment. So I'm like, oh, this could be a really good contact. They handed me their card, and it said Messiah Productions on the front, and on the back it had all this religious scripture. And I basically said, I'm not interested in being in a Christian band, thank you very much, and I handed the card back to him. And Steve said, well, we're not exactly Christian. What we are is, I've been all over the world with this guy. I used to study comparative religions. He knows something about the scripture. And we just go and we talk to rabbis, we talk to teachers, we talk to priests, we'll talk to anyone who has an interest in scriptural things. And for some reason, I kind of thought that was an interesting answer. And so I said, okay, well, I took the card and I left, but I was still thinking, don't call me, I'll call you, kind of thing. And I left with that attitude. Surprisingly, I ended up calling them a few days later. I guess that's what they tell me. I know that I ended up calling them. Things weren't going that great in my band. I think the other thing that was really interesting about the first meeting is at the time, I'd gone to music school out there. I just graduated, and I was working at the Men's Chinese Theater in the gift shop. So I wore a little red smock, and I was selling trinkets to tourists. It was a dead-end job for sure, and I looked up to the sky. This is about 3 days before meeting Dave and Steve, and I said, God, what are you waiting for? I know I'm supposed to meet some people here. I know that I have some kind of destiny to fulfill. So could you please introduce me to the people I'm meant to meet here? And about 3 days later, I met David and Steve Schneider and David Koresh. So I kind of asked for it, is the way I looked at that. Well, I'm just going to make a long story short. I spent some time with them initially. We jammed a little bit. They came and got me. We had a couple Bible studies. Interesting. I'm not a Bible kind of person, but when Steve Schneider opened his, he had one of those 1-inch wide margin Bibles, and every single page was cross-referenced and color-coded notes. Every single page from Genesis to Revelation was cross-referenced and color-coded. I was very impressed with that. I knew that these people, whoever they were, took the Bible seriously, and they wanted to know what it really said, what it really meant. It was a study, and that's what got my fascination. I was the kind of guy that looked at the TV preachers on TV. I never understood why people sent them money. It didn't make any sense to me. It all looked very fake. Sunday school, Adam and Eve. Eve comes from Adam's rib and this is created everything. It all seemed very, very hokey to me. And then I met some people that really knew what the scripture said, what it meant, and how to put it together. And I started to change my view of the scripture. And it started to become more real to me as the days and weeks wore on. I spent some time in Pomona with some of the guys like Jamie Casillo. We'd ride bikes and stuff on a mountain trail in Pomona, California. And then the day came when David said, we're going to Waco for a 2-week festival day. We keep the festival days here, he says. So I think it was the Feast of Tabernacles. He said, for 2 weeks, people will be coming from all over the world to hear me teach the 7 seals. And I've showed you some things, Dave, but we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of it if you want to come to Waco with us. And I said, do I want to go to Waco? Let's see, I got a dead-end job. Sure, I'll go to Waco. So I basically packed up and I went with him on a bus for about a month here to Waco. We came about a week before people started showing up. And the first study Dave gave me here, and I remember we pulled up and it was this it was just this barren landscape. I was used to living in Hollywood with traffic and billboards and scantily clad women and nightclubs, and every night something to do, always something to do, fun, excitement, adventure. And then I came here and the bus is driving up and I'm like, there's 10 little houses in a row. I'm like, that is the weirdest culty thing I've ever seen in my life. There's nothing within miles. All you can see literally is brown shrubs and grass with a bunch of cows grazing in these pastures that go as far as the eye can see. And then there's this one big building with these 10 little houses. And I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? Holy hell was my attitude. So anyway, I'm here. What am I going to do? We pull in that day. And I remember kind of unloaded. They showed me where I was going to stay. And then David said, come to the cafeteria, we'll get something to eat, and then we'll have a study. So I remember I got something to eat, and we're sitting in the cafeteria, and Dave comes in, and all of a sudden, all these people start coming in. I remember Catherine Madison, for some reason, exclusively coming in and sitting down and with this excited grin on her face, and she opens her Bible, and people are coming all of a sudden from all around. I'm like, what is going on here? It was really weird. They're coming in, they're opening their Bible, and David sits down, and he starts to give a study. I think it was the kingdom study, about the kingdom to be set up, where he'd go through Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Revelation, then back to some of the minor prophets. And he put together this whole big picture of what's going to happen in the latter days when the kingdom's set up. And as he started, the clouds started to roll in. And then he would make a point in Revelation about the first seal being loosed or whatever, and then a thunderclap would happen. It was so loud it would shake the windows. And it made the point that he was making. Every time he made a point, there would be like this thunderous thunder, and all the people were looking at each other smiling like it happened every day or something. And I'm just like, this is surreal. I mean, I felt like I was in a Salvador Dali painting or something. It just, I don't think I could reproduce that experience if my life depended on it. And so that was my introduction to Mount Carmel.